Hello students, welcome to today's class. In our previous class, we took a look at characteristics and categories of human rights 1. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at characteristics and categories of human rights 2. Basically, under this topic, we're going to be looking at the categories of human rights. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to categorize human rights, and also you should be able to explain civic and political rights. You should also be able to explain economic and social rights. You should also be able to explain environmental rights. Let us first of all start by looking at civic rights. Civic rights are those privileges that are accruable to the citizens living in a particular country. These rights form the benefit of an individual enjoys from the government. E.g., the individual is entitled to being protected by the government, his life and property, and being provided with basic amenities such as electricity, pipe-borne water, hospital, etc. So what this simply means is that every citizen of a country have what is called civic rights, which is basically about first is security. The security of a citizen in every country is the primary duty of the government of that country. Not just his own life, also his properties. Every citizen of a country, both their life and property must be secured. Adequate plan and program must be in place by the government to ensure that the citizens of such countries are living in peace and in the absence of any fear or threat to their life or properties. And then after that, the government of that country must ensure that social amenities are provided. So it is a responsibility. These are the duties of government. These are things expected of government. So when all of these are done, then government has lived up to the standard that is expected of it. And every citizen of such country have the right to have these things in place. Another one we'll look at now is political right. This is the type of right an individual has for political participation. It entails the power to participate directly or indirectly in the establishment or administration of a government. Those rights are usually held to entitle the adult citizen, and because this right is entrenched in and guaranteed by the Constitution, it is the duty of the government to ensure that none of its citizens is denied of it. So what we are simply saying is that political right has to do with the right an individual has to participate in the government of his own country. The Constitution of Nigeria, made an arrangement that every citizen of their country or of this country have the right to participate in the government of his own country, either directly or indirectly. Directly in the sense that you are involved, you are in a party, you are also wanting to be elected into one office or the other, so you can directly affect the policies of that country. Indirectly is that you are also scrutinizing the policy of government. You are looking at the policy of government. You are giving a constructive criticism to help the government do better. The other one is economic right. Economic right can be defined as the right of access to resources such as land, labor, physical and financial capital that are essential for the creation, legal appropriation, and market exchange of goods and services. So economic right has to also do with the right an individual has in a particular country to have access to resources, to things needed for him or her to live a life that is enviable, a life that is desired by all. You can't be in your home country and you are denying some certain things, such as you don't have access to land, and you don't have access to maybe job. You don't have access to what will enable you live well. When a man has a job and he start earning money, he can begin to start making decision on what he will need to do. But when he doesn't have a job, then you have a kind of incapacitate that person. Then the next one we're going to look at now is environmental right. Environmental right deals with the rights accrued to a person as regard the environment. It means the access to unspoiled natural resources that enable survival, including land, shelter, food, water, and air. Environmental rights are those rights a person has as it regards his environment. The access he has to unspoiled natural resources. For example, in your environment, you have the right to plant things, to plant anything, yam, cassava, or whatsoever. And you also have the right to reap them. You are not entitled to begin to start using things that are already spoiled, that are not okay. So all of those things are also one of such rights. Another right is social rights. Social rights are generally considered an obligation a society places upon itself and its citizens to ensure that all people have some specified standard of living without discrimination. Social right puts an obligation upon the state and active intervention to provide certain guarantee that will help an individual survive and be more efficient in the society. The social rights are those kind of obligation that the society places upon you and also the society. Society has the privilege to ensure that some certain things are in place in the society. Then you also have the privilege to ensure that based on your own thinking, that you should know that this and this should be done or should not be done. So there are things in society that basically when you see them, you know that this is right to be done, and when you see people do it, you commend them. There are the ones that generally when it is done, everybody begins to start speaking against it. That is what we can call social rights. Cultural rights refers to the right an individual has to associate freely with other people and practice his or her culture without fear or discrimination. Cultural rights are not only vested on individuals but also on groups such as religious and ethnic minorities and indigenous society. So cultural rights are those rights that everybody have to practice their culture. Everybody have a culture. Majorly, there is nobody that does not have a culture. So the right you have to ensure that you practice your culture is your cultural right. Then collective human rights. Although the fundamental purpose of human rights is the protection and development of the individual right. Some of these rights are exercised by people in groups, which is also known as collective rights. Freedom of association and assembly, freedom of religion, and more. Especially the freedom to form or join a trade union fell into this category. So there are rights that is for individual to protect and develop that individual. So it is right. There are the ones that are also for groups that can also be known as collective right. We now look at factors that promote fundamental human rights. There are several ways we can protect or safeguard fundamental human rights. They include the following. 1. Independence of the judiciary. What that means is that the judiciary must be granted independence, because as it is normally known that judiciary is the last hope of the common man. So when they have independence, they are not under the control of anybody. They can give fair judgment. They can pass judgment in the right way. And as such, they are not coerced by anybody. Another one is constitutional provision. There should be constitutional provision to protect the rights of every citizen. Like Nigeria has it in I think section 14 of its constitution. There are rights that are listed there, that every individual has what it takes to exercise and enjoy this right. And whenever these rights are violated, that individual can approach a competent court to ask for redress. Number 3 is mass literacy campaign. Mass literacy campaign is also another way to ensure that everybody is literate, to get to understand their rights and also get to stand up to defend it whenever they perceive anybody is about to take advantage of their right. Then freedom of the press. The press also must be given freedom to express things on air, so that people will be aware, so that people will know that these things are happening, and everybody will begin to stand up to ensure that it is prevented from happening again. Then operation of the rule of law. The rule of law also must be given an expression. Like we know that the rule of law is talking about the supremacy of the law, that nobody is above the law. And that is what the rule of law stands for. And as such, everybody becomes subject to the rule of law. The rule of law is given express attention, and by that, the fundamental human right, which is also one of the key and basic principles of the rule of law, will be enhanced. The separation of power. Power must be adequately separated between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, so that all of these can begin to start act as check and balances on themselves. And when all of this is done, what should be will be done, and as such, everybody will become better for it. This is all we are going to take in this lesson. Now, next lesson we'll look at another topic. We'll see you in my next class.